The assassin. You know I break necks, call me Jack Tate. I have no regrets while your life is fading. I'm a crazy fuck equivalent to Satan. When I'm behind the mic, I feel like the greatest. You know I break necks, call me Jack Tate. I have no regrets while your life is fading. I'm a crazy fuck equivalent to Satan. When I'm behind the mic, I feel like the greatest.
What up, y'all? You're listening to Sports Talk with Tropp, and I'm your host, Katie Tropp. Well, how's everybody's bracket looking? Mine is donezo, blown up. Not a shock though, you know. It's it's always difficult to even guess the champion ever. So I mean, it's always difficult to even get one of the Final Four teams right. So I mean, hell, out of all the years I've been making a bracket, let me think. Let's see, I've probably been making a bracket since I was in about maybe my junior year of high school. So we'll say about like 2001, 2002. I think that's maybe when I started making brackets, around that time. And I think from then until now, I think I know I predicted Duke would be the champion. Whenever the last time Duke won the championship a few years ago, that I got that right. And I think that's the only time that I can recall that I ever even picked the champion right. But I think I remember when, even though I picked Duke right that season, my Final Four was completely obliterated. I think they were the only team I had at that point. So I'm sure everybody else's brackets are looking spectacular at this point. As a matter of fact, in my little pick'em league with Simon, we have 15 people total who made brackets, and all but one are knocked out right now. There's one person left, and he picked Villanova. So we'll see what happens with him. He is literally the only one left. The rest of us, all of our brackets suck. But we'll get to more college basketball here in a bit. First, I did want to mention that I just recently dropped a little promo video for my music video that's going to be released on Saturday called The Art of the Bitch. So you can check that on my website, katietropp.net, or on my YouTube channel, Katie Tropp. Check it out. It's a bloody mess, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But I will say, if you have seen it, and you'll see that I'm completely covered in blood. Yeah, that was one of the most uncomfortable moments in my entire life because that shit was sticky as fuck. So yeah, the fake, and it was real like Hollywood blood too. The kind of cool thing is that it tasted like mint. So when it got in my mouth, I just tasted mint. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, go ahead and check out the promo video. I do my best. I'll say my best Bob Ross impression. But look out for the music video that drops on Saturday. Also, I failed in my fantasy basketball league this week. I lost to good old Rattlers, and the championship round is going to be team pick and roll versus team Rattlers. And I'm not shocked here because both of these guys, they tend to dominate basketball, the basketball league. And so it's only fitting that this is how it's going to end up. Me and Cyclones weren't able to hold off these two beasts that tend to always be in the championship round and then usually win as well. So we'll see what happens between the two of them. I wish them luck. You know, this is this basketball league that I'm talking about is actually one that I'm commissioner of. So I always got to give a shout out to my homies there who play in my leagues. I appreciate all of you because you actually compete hard. We have a good time with each other, talk a little shit, nothing crazy, but we have fun with it. And so good luck to both Team Pick and Roll and Team Rattlers, and we'll see who comes out on top. Then also I'm in 4 fantasy hockey leagues, and I'm not even that big of a hockey fan. I like the San Jose Sharks, but I wouldn't say I'm like an avid hockey watcher. But man, when it comes to fantasy hockey, I'm actually pretty fucking good at it. And I don't really know that much about the players either. And I think that kind of helps because I don't have any like team favorites or any like favorite players who I tend to go towards like I would in other sports. So I'm actually pretty good in fantasy hockey. And this week, one of my 4 leagues, the playoffs began, and I just made the playoffs in this one. I was the 6th seed, so I ended up just making it. And I'm team knock 'em out versus team leads Knights this week in this fantasy hockey league. So we'll see if I'm able to pull through, because let me tell you, fantasy hockey is crazy. Like, the guys that I play with, they are so fucking competitive, and I'm not even gonna lie to kick it. Sometimes these guys get so fucking crybaby-ish on the message boards. It's fucking hilarious to watch. Sometimes I'm like watching them go back and forth over the dumbest shit. Usually it's like a trade and somebody's throwing a fit over a trade, like, you vetoed my trade. And I don't usually veto anybody's trades. I kind of always look at it like, if everybody values players differently. So unless it looks like absolute collusion, I never veto the trades. But there's always these motherfuckers just going back and forth, bitching and complaining about, I'm like, dude, this is just fantasy hockey, y'all. Can we just have some fun? So real talk, yeah, these guys in my fantasy hockey league, also fantasy baseball too, man. They get a little bitchy in these leagues. It's actually quite funny when I'm like the only female for the most part in most of these leagues. A couple of my hockey leagues, there's a couple chicks in them, but the baseball leagues, I'm almost positive I'm the only chick in all of them. And by the way, in fantasy baseball, I'm literally in like 10 fantasy baseball leagues. No fucking joke. Just started a couple of drafts this weekend. So yeah. But yeah, fantasy hockey, fantasy baseball, when I'm looking at these dudes, quote dudes on the message boards, sometimes they are literally bitching back and forth like little girls, and it's just really hilarious watching it from my standpoint as the girl. But hey, we'll see how I do in fantasy hockey this week in the playoffs, and then I think the other three leagues, the playoffs begin either next week or the following week. But yeah. That's the fantasy sports journey I have for you right now. I'll keep you posted because I'm sure you guys all care, but it's my show. I can talk about whatever the fuck I want, y'all. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our busted-ass brackets this weekend, man. I had UCLA, and they just totally let me down. They let me down on Friday night. It was just very difficult to see them lose, and they were my only hope because at that point, my entire Final Four was knocked out. But hey, we got some great matchups in this weekend's upcoming Final Four. But let's just go ahead and recap some of the Elite Eight games we had this weekend. The first one over in the West region, we had Arkansas versus Duke. And Duke just absolutely dominated Arkansas. You know, Duke is actually looking like they're about to be, they're going to send Coach K out with a championship. Because at this point, while the teams that are in the Final Four, all four of them deserve to be there. All four of them are great teams. But I'm going to keep it real, man. This Duke team, they're playing for Coach K. They want to send this guy out on top. And it's actually just cool to see. You know, I'm not a Duke fan at all. I actually, you know, whenever I'm watching a Duke North Carolina game, I don't really care for either team, but I'm usually rooting for North Carolina. I just never have liked Duke. But I mean, I have great respect for them as a team. And I definitely have great respect for Coach K. He is an absolute legend in this games. But this Duke team, they just took it to Arkansas. They owned them from start to finish, and they ended up winning 78-69, and they moved on into the Final Four. Then down in the East region, we had North Carolina versus St. Peter's, and the Cinderella story just ended there. I mean, North Carolina just absolutely obliterated St. Peter's. You know, St. Peter's, they played a good game up until that point, and then it just like started to get away from them, you know, like with 5 minutes into the game too. Like it was, I remember at one point I was watching it. I was actually working out, and I had my headphones on listening to music, but I'm still watching the games, and I see that they're interviewing the coach for St. Peter's, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, we must be going into halftime, because the score was like, they were down by like 13, 14, maybe even more points at this point. And then, you know, the clock comes back up and they're going back to play. And I'm like, oh, dude, there's still like freaking 12 minutes left in this game in the first quarter. So, yeah, that was an absolute ass kicking from North Carolina. They won 69-49. And I will say, you know, St. Peter's, they were the Cinderella team this year, and they did a great job. They look like they're building something solid out there. And they could, you know, if they just keep doing what they're doing, they could end up being, they got a really good coach out there too. He's I really like his mindset. I really liked when they would interview him and just kind of the way he speaks. He's very even keeled. He doesn't really tend to get up and down. So I really liked what I saw from that dude. But man, they ran into North Carolina, and North Carolina just took care of business in that one. So they moved on to the Final Four. Then in the South Side, region, we had Houston versus Villanova in the Elite Eight, and this was another one. Ass kicking from the start. Well, not from this. Well, most of for the majority of the time, Villanova was kicking their ass. There was a point where Houston was kind of making it a little bit of a game in the second half, but then Villanova just they were able to just maintain throughout. They did lose one of their star players. I can't recall what his name is, but what it looked like to me was a torn Achilles. I've seen those before. I could be wrong. I didn't really see any updates on his injury status. But it looked pretty bad. I don't think he's going to be playing in the Final Four, which sucks. Yeah, Villanova, they just played a great game there. I actually am kind of pissed off at myself because I was looking at Villanova as one of my teams to pick as the champion beforehand. And I actually went with Tennessee in this bracket. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, what a fucking idiot. I should have went with Villanova because they just are a really good team. They're well coached. And I wouldn't be shocked if they ended up winning the national championship. But they ended up beating Houston 50-44, and now they've moved on to the Final Four. And then in the Midwest region, we had Kansas versus Miami, and this was just another ass kicking. Kansas just dominated from start to finish. Miami couldn't find their shot at all. They were just overmatched from beginning to end, and Kansas ended up easily beating Miami 76-50 and moving on to the Final Four. So our Final Four matchups are going to be Duke versus North Carolina, which is just a spectacular matchup. If you're just a college basketball fan, this right here is gold. It's unfortunate that it's the Final Four, not the championship game, because this is just a great way to this is a Coach K send off, and so if North Carolina sends home Coach K, they're going to be happy about it. And if Duke gets the win, hey, they're going on to the national championship. So I'm not going to make any of my predictions yet. I'll save that for Friday. But this is going to be a great matchup. And it's just really awesome to see Coach K at least, get to another Final Four. And we'll see how his career ends. But even if it ends in the Final Four, come on, man, that's still a great ending. And then the other matchup's going to be Villanova versus Kansas. And this is going to be another great matchup. I'm torn on who I'm going to pick on this one, especially because they match up very well against each other. And I think where the weakness could end up being is with the injured player on Villanova, because he was a big guy for them in the middle, and so that could be a problem. Because Kansas, they're a really good team. They're a very silent but deadly team. And honestly, I can make a case for each one of these teams to win the national championship. And so we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to each one of these matchups. And like I said, I'll get more into it on Friday and I'll break down all my predictions on that, even though obviously my predictions haven't been doing very well. Not only in the brackets, but also, my playoff predictions in the NFL were pretty bad too. I think I only got one right. So, if you're a gambler, I kind of feel like you should probably not do what I say, at least right now, because my picks are not doing that well. But hey, I'm not a gambler, so who the fuck cares? As a matter of fact, I've mentioned before, I grew up in Reno, Nevada, and never in my entire 37 years of existence have I ever gambled. I've never even put a penny in a slot machine. Because I think gambling is pointless and stupid. Now, granted, if you have the money and you gamble, I don't have any issues with people gambling. You can do whatever the fuck you want. But I personally just think it's a waste of money. Even if I were rich, I wouldn't waste my money on gambling because the casinos are big for a reason. And I kind of have a feeling me growing up in Reno might have played a part in me not being a gambler. But yeah, that's just an interesting fact of somebody who grew up in Nevada and literally has never placed a penny in a machine. As a matter of fact, hilarious moments when I'm in Vegas. My mom and my brother, they'll put some, coins in one of the video poker machines, and I'll just stand behind them watching. And there's been times where security has actually walked up to me and ID'd me because I know I look young, even though I'm 37 years old. Well, 37 next week, 36 technically, but I call myself 37 now. But yeah, even though I'm an old bitch, they still card my ass. So yeah, that's pretty fucking hilarious, isn't it? But yeah, never gambled. Don't intend to. Don't care to. But if you do, have fun. Have fun losing your money because you ain't winning. All right, now let's move on to baseball. And let's go with my AL and NL Central season preview. And let's go ahead and start it off with the NL Central. And I think the Cardinals are going to end up winning this division. Now, I think it's going to be very close between the Cardinals and the Milwaukee Brewers. Both teams are very, very good. But the Cardinals, they were not bad last year. They started off the season pretty slow. They had to work their way through some injuries. But, man, the second half of the season, they really turned it on. And then they hit the playoffs and had a decent run. And so I could tell they were actually building something. And they do have a great batting lineup. But, I mean, just to be honest, they're an all-around great team. It's crazy that Adam Wainwright is still their ace. And he's still pitching well. He still has to battle through the injuries, but other than that, he's just a great pitcher. But their batting order, you've got Goldschmidt in there, you've got Arenado in there, you've got Bader, O'Neill, and then you've got good old Molina still doing his thing for a million years. I swear to God, this guy's never going to retire, which I don't have a problem with, but he's basically like Tom Brady and LeBron James, the dude who still sticks around. He still plays well too. I mean, when he's not injured, he tends to get some pretty badass injuries throughout the season. He is a catcher, and catchers are in the line of fire, and they're stuck in that crouched position all the time, having fastballs thrown at them all the time, getting hit in the face with the fastball. So. And then getting tip balls and then getting hit with bats. So it's very, being a catcher, I respect the catchers, respect the hell out of catchers. And Molina, he has been one of the best in the league, and he's still doing it at a high level. So it's really cool to see that. He's a champion too, and he always shows up when you need him the most. So I really like what I see from the St. Louis Cardinals, other than their bullpen. Their bullpen is probably their most questionable aspect of this team, but I feel like, and their defense, I feel like is going to be awesome too, just because they do have a lot of great guys, great position guys out there. So I just kind of see the Cardinals absolutely dominating the NL Central this season. But I do have the Milwaukee Brewers coming in a close second. What I do love about the Brewers is they have great starting pitching. Actually, great bullpen as well, but their starting pitching, they got Woodruff, Corbin Burns, Peralta, and then the bullpen, they've got Suter, and then they close it out with Hader. And Hader's been one of the best closers in the league the last couple of seasons. So their pitching is solid. But their batting lineup is not as good as the Cardinals. It's not stacked. They did add Andrew McCutchen, which I think is a good thing because now we have the DH in the NL, and I think Andrew McCutchen's going to be the perfect DH now because he tends to get hurt a lot now. And so with him only coming into bat, I think that's going to be a great thing to extend his career a little bit more. When he's on the field and in your lineup, he's scary. Still to this day, he's always been a great hitter. But I think playing the DH role is going to be perfect for Andrew McCutchen. And I think he's going to fit in well with this team. They do have, like I said, an older batting lineup. So I feel like injuries might end up being their issue. But I still expect them to be one of the top teams in baseball this season. Then I think in third place is going to be the Chicago Cubs. Just overall, they're a very mediocre team. Their only major addition they really made this offseason was this Japanese sensation named Seiya Suzuki. So we don't really know what kind of a player he's going to be. You never know how the Japanese players translate. There's lots of times where they're one of the most spectacular players in the league, but then there's also times where they become the most overrated player in the league, and it happens all the time. So with the Japanese players, it's always, you just never know what you're going to get until they actually start playing. And he seems to be the guy everybody was going after this offseason. So I kind of expect him to make some noise, and he's definitely a guy you should be watching out for if you're a Cubs fan. because overall, I mean, their pitching is old. Their batting is old. Overall, they're just a very old team. I expect them to have an okay season, but they might be one of those, either they'll get like last team in as the playoffs, or they're probably not going to be a playoff team. I don't have much high expectations for this Cubs team at all. But I have even less expectations for the Pittsburgh Pirates, because when I was looking at their roster, I was like, who the fuck is this team? Like, real talk. I couldn't even pick one of the players and be like, oh, yeah, I've seen you play. Nah. Well, actually, I take that back. They have a third baseman named Cabrian. I forget his last name. Is it Hayes? I think it's Cabrian Hayes. I only know this because he's a good fantasy baseball player to have. He's not like a top guy, but he's definitely a guy you want on your roster if he's not injured. So that's about the only guy I can even think of on the Pirates. Other than that, they are a awful team, and I'm not expecting much from them. But a team that I'm expecting even less from are the Cincinnati Reds, who I think are probably going to be either the worst team in the league this year or one of the worst teams. Like, they're going to definitely be bottom 3 in the league this year, because they traded everybody away during this offseason. Any halfway decent player they had, they pretty much traded away. So, yeah, I'm not expecting much from the Reds. Usually their crowds are pretty light, and I think they're going to remain light this season, because there is absolutely nothing to cheer for this year if you are a Reds fan. So I have the NL Central going as follows. I've got the Cardinals finishing in first, Brewers in second, Cubs in third, Pirates in fourth, and Reds in fifth. Then moving on to the AL Central, I was going back and forth between two teams yet again, and I chose the Twins. I think the Minnesota Twins are going to be the team to beat in the AL Central. I could tell over the last 2 seasons, the Twins have really been a team that you could tell that's starting to come on. They're building a team. They just haven't made it there yet. And now I think they've made it there. They made, I think, some really good moves this offseason. And with an already stacked team, they already had a good batting lineup with Buxton and Kepler and Polanco, but then they added Carlos Correa, who not only is a great bat, but I think is going to be spectacular for them out in the field. And then they added Gio Urshela as well, who I think is a very underrated player. He played very well with the Yankees. It's just he was injured a lot. And I was actually shocked when the Yankees traded him away, but they traded him away. And so I actually think that Urshela is going to be kind of like a dark horse for the Twins in their lineup. And then they also traded for Sonny Gray from the team I was just discussing, the Cincinnati Reds. He was their ace last year. He had one of the best seasons a pitcher could have last year. So I think the Twins just made their starting pitching, which was pretty solid last year. I think their starting pitching is kind of questionable outside of Gray. But I looked at their roster and I'm like, there's something about the Twins that I just feel that they are going to be a force this year. And so I've got them winning the AL Central. Then I've got the Chicago White Sox in second. And that was really difficult for me because they have a great batting lineup. I mean, they've got Tim Anderson, who is one of the most underrated shortstops in the league. I don't think anybody really knows who he is, but damn, he can hit. He plays defense. He's just an all-around great player, and nobody really talks about him. And so I really like him. Then you've got Eloy Jimenez, and you got Moncada, and you've got Jose Abreu. So they've got a solid batting lineup. But their starting pitching and their bullpen are very questionable to me. As a matter of fact, their only pitcher that I can really trust is Giolito. He's been a very, very solid pitcher, one of the best pitchers actually in the league. I think the reason why he doesn't get a lot of attention, just like Tim Anderson, is because they play for the White Sox. You know, the White Sox aren't really a sexy team for the league. So I think those two guys kind of get left behind when you're discussing them. But they're both great players. The White Sox do have a really good team. And I expect them to actually be a very competitive team throughout this season. But I do think they're going to just fall short of the Twins, even though I think it's going to be a battle to the very end between those two teams. Then moving on to the Cleveland Guardians. Now, if you don't know, the Guardians changed they used to be the Cleveland Indians, and this is the first year that they changed their name to the Guardians. And that's, I think it's such a horrible name. And I'll tell you why, and it's a personal thing, because I personally hate superheroes. And this name, the Guardians, totally to me sounds like a fucking dumbass, like superhero shit. And I just hate that crap. I hate superheroes. And even on a deeper level here, most specifically, I fucking hate Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I've never seen this movie. I have no interest in seeing this movie. But the reason why I fucking hate it so much is because one of my favorite places on earth is Disneyland. And one of my favorite rides on earth was the Tower of Terror. And they completely raped and obliterated the Tower of Terror with this Guardians of the Galaxy bullshit. Now, granted, I still will go on Tower of the Terror. I still call it Tower of the Terror. Don't fucking care that it's Guardians of the gay-ass galaxy. And so, yeah, I personally just fucking hate this name Guardians because it's triggering to me. Because fuck you, Disneyland. Fuck you, Disneyland, for getting rid of my Tower of Terror. You got it in Paris. You still got it in Florida. But in in Anaheim, you just screw us all over and give us a stupid ass Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's why I can't stand this name by the Cleveland Guardians, because I fucking hate superheroes and I really, really, really hate Guardians of the Galaxy. But you know what? They changed their name. Whoop-de-doo. You know, they didn't do it for any specific reasons. Yeah, over the years, people have been, the rally cry of, Redskins, blah, this, blah, blah. You know, everybody's got to have their whiny little issues with every fucking team name these days. So they ended up changing their name to the Guardians. I think they did it like last season was when they announced it, but they were kind of already moving that way. And I mean, honestly, most of the time when this happens, it's kind of like when a player changes his number. It's really just to make more money, and you can't argue with that. You can't hate against that. Hey, so now we have the Cleveland Guardians instead of the Cleveland Indians. Overall, I think the Guardians are not a bad team. They do have one of the best pitchers in the league, Shane Bieber, who the last couple of seasons has been just lights out. And I expect him to continue to be lights out. But everybody else in the starting pitching beyond him is very questionable. And that's why I think they're going to kind of struggle this year, is because he's really their only good, solid pitcher. The rest are questionable. You know, they have their moments, but you know, kind of like Zach Plesac. He's not bad, but then he's not that great either. He'll have his moments, but then you're like, Jesus Christ, dude, can you fucking pitch? He'll have a good game, and then the next game he'll have 8 earned runs. So everybody beyond Bieber in this pitching staff is very questionable. And then their batting order, everybody, even beyond, once you get beyond Jose Ramirez and Reyes, there really isn't anybody who's going to wow you, at least from what I see right now. So the Guardians, they should have an okay season, but I don't really think they're going to be that competitive yet. And then I've got the Royals, the Kansas City Royals, in 4th place in the AL Central. And they're just really an awful team. I looked at their roster and I'm like, wow. The only good players they have are Perez and Merrifield in their batting order. And then they just re-signed Zach Greinke this offseason. Now, granted, this is not the same Zach Greinke they used to have, the Cy Young Award winner. This is just the old one. So I kind of expect the Royals to just kind of chug along this season and not be a very good team. But an even worse team this year, I think, is going to be the Detroit Tigers. I actually think they are also going to be one of the top 3 worst teams in the league, right there with the Cincinnati Reds and the Pirates. Because when I looked at their roster, I was like, who is this team? The only person I recognized on their roster was Miguel Cabrera. Yeah, 900-year-old Miguel Cabrera. Don't get me wrong, I respect the fucking shit out of Miguel Cabrera, but he's 950 years old. This dude's been in the league for a million years. Shit, Justin Verlander used to pitch on the Tigers when this guy played for them. So, and he's had his injury issues over the year, but he is a DH, so that does extend his playing career, and he could still hit. It's just the injuries. Every year he gets injured, and he's out for like half the season. And then when he comes back, he's out for another month, and then he comes back, and then he's out. It's just crazy to see that he's still playing, but I mean, good for him. He's the only thing Detroit has anything to look forward to this season because, like I said, I think the Tigers are going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. So I have the AL Central as follows. Minnesota Twins in first place, White Sox in second, the Cleveland Guardians in third, and the Kansas City Royals in fourth, and the Detroit Tigers in fifth. And baseball starts next week, motherfuckers. I'll kind of go through my playoff predictions and who I think is going to wind up being the champion. Way too early for those kind of predictions, but guess what? I got a sports show and I got to talk some shit about my sports. So, I'm going to be making those playoff predictions and who I think is going to be the champion on Friday. And so now let's move on to my top 10 NBA power rankings. We had some major moves this week. Before I get to the top 10, though, just so y'all know, I don't know if you got the message. But the Lakers, they still suck. I don't know if you guys know this yet, but the Lakers are they're an awful team. I don't know if I've delivered that message to y'all yet. They're an awful team. And we'll see if they make the playoffs. And even if they make the playoffs, it's kind of going to be a big old whoop-de-fucking-do because the Lakers are trash. But let's talk about good teams. Let's talk about some good teams right now. Let's go in on my top 10 NBA power rankings here, starting with number one. Who has been number one this entire season except for 1 week? And that is the Phoenix Suns. Motherfucking Devin Booker is balling so hard. This guy, it's crazy because, you hear all this MVP talk about Joel Embiid, which I think he absolutely deserves MVP talk. You hear all this MVP talk about, Jokic out in Denver. You hear it about, oh my God, I'm drawing a total fucking blank on what's his face from the Mavericks. God fucking damn it. Regardless, yeah. Luka Doncic. He is also, you hear talk about him for MVP as well. You don't hear any talk about Devin Booker, and let me tell you what. Devin Booker not only has had a spectacular season, but he has taken over since Chris Paul got injured, and he is just out of control right now, and I think he deserves some, at least, he may not deserve the MVP, but he at least deserves some type of talk, because, man, he is killing it right now. And the Suns are on an 8-game winning streak, so they're doing okay without Chris Paul. They're 9-1 overall, or they're 9-1 the last 10 games, and 61-14 record overall. So, yeah, Phoenix Suns, number one on my top 10 NBA power rankings. Number two, Boston Celtics. They are now officially the first place team out east, taking that over from the Heat, who have imploded this week. We'll get to them in a bit. Celtics riding a 6-game winning streak, 9-1 in their last 10 games, 47-28 overall, and they just continue to dominate. This has got to be the team you need to watch out for if you are in the East, because they are just dominating at all ends of the court, offensively and defensively, and Jason Tatum is just taking no prisoners this season. So Celtics, number two on my top 10 NBA power rankings. Then number three on my top 10 NBA power rankings are the Memphis Grizzlies, who, no Ja, no problem. At first when Ja Morant went down, I was like, shit, man, Grizzlies are fucked. Nah, they were like, no, we're good. We'll maintain this until Ja gets back come playoff time. They're on a 4-game winning streak this week. They killed everybody they played this week. 8-2 in their last 10 games, at 52-23 overall record. So, Memphis Grizzlies playing great basketball right now, looking good without Ja. So, we'll see what they do come playoff time. They might be making some noise. Then number 4 in my top 10 NBA power rankings are the Milwaukee Bucks. They are 46-28 overall. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. This week they went 2-1. They had their only loss this week was against Memphis. So that's not a horrible loss. They lost to a really good team, but they did get dominated in that game. So I got the Bucks at number 4. Then at number 5 on my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings, I got the Philadelphia 76ers. They actually had a good bounce back week this week. They're 46-28 overall, 6-4 in their last 10 games, and they went 3-1 this week. Their only loss was to Phoenix, which was a back and forth battle. So they took it to the brink, and that was actually a game where Devin Booker, he went off. And the 76ers had a good week. They seem to be getting ready for the playoffs. And all the Harden talks kind of simmered because he's also kind of simmered as well. But we'll see what happens come playoff time. Joel Embiid, that dude's been balling hard this year too. Then number 6 on my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings, Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic. Yeah, that's the guys whose name I couldn't fucking remember. Jesus Christ, what an idiot! It's because I'm a stoner, man. We'll just blame it on the weed, even though that's not true. I do smoke copious amounts of weed, but my memory's great. Just saying. But the Dallas Mavericks are number 6 on my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings, 46-29 overall. They had a great week this week. They went 3-1, and Luka just continues to absolutely dominate every team he plays. And the Mavericks they're just a solid team overall. Then number 7 on my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings, back in the top 10. Toronto Raptors. They've been going off the last couple of weeks, actually, and they're such a weird team. They're 42-32 overall. They've won 2 straight, 8-2 in their last 10 games. It's like one week they'll be down, then the next week they'll be up. So I kind of have a feeling they might be a team that gets a weird upset come playoff time, depending on who they end up going up against. But hey, right now they're playing really well, and they're making a solid case for themselves to make the playoffs. Then at number 8 on my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings, a team I have not discussed this season, the Charlotte Hornets. They just had a really spectacular week this week. They beat some good teams. They took out the Brooklyn Nets. They're 39-36 overall, 7-3 in their last 10 games. They've won 2 in a row, and they're just really on fire. They're actually beating some pretty good teams. I don't know how I don't really think they're that great of a team, but, the power rankings usually just go by what happened this past week. And I do consider overall things that have happened throughout the season, but usually I just kind of look at this past week, and the Hornets had a great week. Then at number 9 in my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings are the Minnesota Timberwolves. They fell a little bit. They're 43-33 overall, 6-4 in their last 10 games. They had a down week, but they're still a good team. Karl Anthony Towns, he's just a spectacular player as well, and he's really lifting this team to a whole other level. So I've got the Timberwolves at number 9. And then rounding out my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings are the Brooklyn Nets. They're 39-36 overall. They're kind of just hanging in there for the playoffs, but they actually had a really good week. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. Like I said, they did just lose to the Hornets, which was a bad loss, but I mean, overall, they did have a good week. Now that Kyrie Irving can play all of their games, now that he's allowed back in their home games in Brooklyn, I think that's going to be definitely helpful for them for a playoff run. Now, I'm not really sold on them being a championship contender, but they're definitely going to make the playoffs. And you'll notice there's a team that's been in my top 10 for quite some time now that actually wasn't there, and that would be the Miami Heat. This team, I can't believe how bad this team is imploding. Like, they had the worst week of their season. I mean, they've been dominating everybody this season. They've pretty much had the number 1 spot in the Eastern Conference from the jump. And they're 0-4 this past week. And not only are they 0-4, but there was this crazy moment this week where Jimmy Butler got into a fight. I believe it was with Udonis Haslem, talk about another dude who's still in the league and 95 years old. Udonis Haslem still in the league, and that's him. But he and Jimmy Butler got in this crazy fight, altercation, on the sideline during one of their breaks, during one of their big losses this week. And it was kind of crazy because it's like, man, you're the best team out east. You've already made the playoffs. And, it's one thing to be jawing back and forth with the opposing team. But when you're like getting into it with your own teammates, that says a lot. So we'll see what happens with them come playoff time. But it was a very interesting week to watch the Miami Heat. And as I was going through my top 10, I was like, damn, I think the Heat are going to fall out. Because, I mean, first of all, 0-4, that's a bad week. But then just to watch the implosion, and you just wonder if it's going to be something that lingers throughout the playoffs. And this is not the good time to be having an implosion. And speaking of the playoffs, we are legitimately 2 weeks away officially from the NBA playoffs. The play-in starts on April 12th, and then the actual round one playoffs begin on April 16th. So how's the playoff picture looking right now? Well, number 1 out west is the Phoenix Suns. Number 2, Memphis Grizzlies. Number 3, Golden State Warriors. Number 4, Dallas Mavericks. Number 5, Utah Jazz. Number 6, Denver Nuggets. And then in the play-in side, we would have number 7, Minnesota Timberwolves. Number 8, Los Angeles Clippers. Number 9, New Orleans Pelicans. And number 10, my shitty-ass Los Angeles Lakers. Who are literally barely going to make the playoffs. It's going to be very iffy to see what happens with them these next 2 weeks. By the way, speaking of my shitty Lakers, they have only won 4 games since the All-Star break. That's fucking pathetic. In my opinion, they shouldn't even be in the 10th spot. They shouldn't even make the playoffs. That's how shitty they are. I mean, of course, I'm rooting for them. I always root for my team, no matter how shitty they are. But Jesus Christ, this team, I just kind of want them to stop the bleeding at this point because it's just been so fucking awful to watch. And then the teams that are officially out of it in the Western Conference, I already mentioned Houston was out of it last week. And officially this week, Oklahoma City Thunder are out of playoff contention. So moving on over to the Eastern Conference, the number 1 seed right now would be the Boston Celtics. Number 2 would be Miami Heat. Number 3, Milwaukee Bucks. Number 4, Philadelphia 76ers. Number 5, Chicago Bulls. Number 6, Toronto Raptors. And then on the play-in side, we've got number 7, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Number 8, the Charlotte Hornets. Number 9, the Brooklyn Nets. And number 10, the Atlanta Hawks. So that's how the Eastern Conference is looking. And as I mentioned last week, the Indianapolis Pacers are out of it, the Detroit Pistons are out of it, and the Orlando Magic are out of it. So those are our lottery teams right now at this point for the draft. But yeah, should be a very interesting couple of weeks here for the NBA. And then we get to the nitty gritty. We get to the great time, the NBA playoffs. I love me some NBA playoffs, and I'm really looking forward to discussing some of these matchups we have coming up because I think this is just another year, I said it about the NFL season. I've said it about college basketball. And now I'm going to say it about the NBA because I can already see, like, just looking at some of the matchups on that playoff bracket, if things were to end today, some of those matchups are great. And I'm going to say it. There's a lot of parity. A lot of parity. Even though the Suns are a runaway, in my opinion, if I have to pick a champion today, I'm probably going to be picking the Suns. But I think there's just going to be a lot of parity, especially in the Eastern Conference, and it's going to be very interesting to see how things turn out. So, so far for sports in 2022, the theme, in my opinion, has been just a lot of parity, and you don't know who's going to win, and just very interesting matchups. And so I'm looking forward to what we've got coming in the next 2 weeks, except for what I'm going to see from the Lakers, because I imagine it's going to be something that pisses me off. But I digress. Let's move into just a couple of things that happened in the NFL this weekend. It was announced that the Buffalo Bills, they are going to get a new stadium. Breaking ground, or it's going to be finished in 2026. So we've got a while until we see the finished product here. But their thing over the last, I want to say, at least 2 seasons, the Bills have been trying to get a new stadium. I didn't think for 1 second they weren't going to get one because Buffalo Bills fans are very diehard fans, and Buffalo loves their football team. So I expected something to get done in order for the Bills to remain in Buffalo. I didn't really think for 1 second they were going anywhere, and they're not going to go anywhere. So while that's a long ways away, it's still very interesting to see. And, with the way stadiums have gone this year, they usually tend to get bigger and better with each new one we get. I kind of have a feeling they're not going to do the dome thing. I kind of think I didn't see any of the plans. I don't know if there are plans for it already. I kind of assume there probably are. But I don't know if they're going to be doing a dome or not. I hope they don't. I kind of feel like if I'm Buffalo, you definitely want to have that shitty weather to your advantage, especially come playoff time. So I think I have a feeling they would not make this a dome. But then at the same time, they might, because it's pretty goddamn cold in Buffalo. When I'm watching games there, that's one of those games where you're like, I am glad I'm not there, at least from my vantage point, because I hate the snow and I hate the cold, so I don't want to be there when I'm watching most Buffalo Bills games. But hey, they're getting a new stadium. We'll see what's going to happen with that one. But yeah, not shocked with that. Then also something else I kind of noticed is you could tell the market has kind of gone silent on the quarterbacks this week, even though we have two guys still out there. Obviously Baker Mayfield's going to get traded or released from the Cleveland Browns now that they traded for Deshaun Watson. Obviously he's not going to be sitting on the bench. But it's kind of telling that nobody's traded for him yet. And so we'll see what kind of a market there is out there for Baker. But then also another silent market is Jimmy G, man. I'm sure the shoulder surgery that he just recently had is a huge turnoff to a lot of teams. But I felt from the beginning that the 49ers kind of fucked up with this whole Jimmy G situation. I felt like they needed to pick or choose between building the team around Jimmy G or going another way. And I don't feel like they could have just left Trey Lance on the bench like they did last year and have it succeed this year. I think what they were kind of banking on was Jimmy G was going to finish this season for them, which he did. And then they were going to get a good haul for him this offseason, especially with how far they went in the playoffs. So I think they thought they were going to get something decent for him. And I just think the market just really went silent once he had his shoulder surgery. And now there's rumblings like they might just end up releasing him. So I think the Niners kind of fucked up in this whole Jimmy Garoppolo situation. They should have either traded him when they had the chance to, or just gone in on all in on Jimmy G, and they didn't do either. And now they're in this predicament where they may not get a goddamn thing for Jimmy G. And then I just wanted to say a good congratulations to the Cleveland press and how they handled the Deshaun Watson introduction the other day on Friday, because they did not hold back. For the most part, these days especially, the media doesn't like to really go hard on when a player gets arrested or does something shitty, because they don't want to piss off ownership and they don't want to make it so they want access. They want to always be able to interview a player on the team, or, if they happen to go to the playoffs, they of course they always want the access. And so for the most part, the media is very, very light. They like to pretend they're not. They like to pretend they ask the hard-hitting questions and get really down to it, and then they'll write all their stupid articles. Actually, kind of what they did about this, too. I am congratulating the Cleveland press, but a lot of the stupid articles, it's amusing to me that people are really shocked that Deshaun Watson is getting another chance, that he got a guaranteed contract. I mean, come on. This, like I said on the last episode when I addressed this Deshaun Watson incident, life is not fair. And if you're good at something, people are going to keep paying you. And it's not just in football. It's not just in sports. It's actually in all of life. That's really how life works. Sometimes shitty people get elevated to levels, and that's just the way it is. And there's nothing you could do about it. And you can write all the stupid little retarded articles you want about it, but it's just not gonna do anything. And you can be as shocked as you want, but I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at any point. I expected somebody to pay Deshaun Watson. I expected them to trade for Deshaun Watson. And they should. Come on, grow up, people. So yeah, there were just a bunch of stupid articles that they were like, really, this was a bad look. And yeah, it is a bad look for the Browns. But I will say the Cleveland press, they did not back down. And they didn't back down because, the thing that I found most amusing, this was so typical of all these situations where, first of all, we have Deshaun Watson here sitting in the middle, and he's got the coach next to him, and he's got the GM next to him because, Deshaun Watson's a little victim, because that is the image they're portraying there. That Deshaun Watson needs two men to help him because he can't answer these questions, these hard little questions, all on his own. Deshaun the Dick Dangler Watson, he just can't do it all on his own. He needs these two men because he's the victim. Yeah, get over it. That kind of shit is just so hilarious to me. So when I saw that at first, that was what I really laughed at. I'm like, come on, dude. You guys just always do the same exact thing. Then they have the same exact answers over and over again. And my favorite thing is they repeat the same thing, but they use really big words. And my favorite is that people are actually like shocked that the Browns and the teams that were interested in trading for Deshaun Watson didn't really, quote, do their due diligence and their comprehensive background checks. People are shocked that they didn't really do it. I'm not shocked. As a matter of fact, I assumed what their background check and their comprehensive, because they kept using the word comprehensive, because that's what you do, is you need to just add in all these really big words to confuse people. And it looks like you care, or it looks you're just using word salad, basically. And so their comprehensive investigation from their private investigators, this is what it was. They found out he wasn't charged criminally, and so they said, okay, we're going to go after him. And I do absolutely believe they had private investigators do research into all this, because that's what all sports teams do. But as a matter of fact, I assume what the private investigators really did is they went and intimidated these women who are suing Deshaun Watson. And the only reason why I say that is because there's actually many articles over the years of many sports teams, and not just sports teams, actually, it's a rich person thing to do, but sports teams, since that's what we're talking about, they actually do intimidate people with private investigators. If they're a woman who's been beat up by a guy in the league, or if they accuse him of rape, or in this case, accuse him of dangling his dick on you during massages. So I'm sure that's actually what really happened, is the private investigators went and intimidated them and tried to get them to shut up and settle. And so far that hasn't worked, apparently, but that is usually what their private investigators do. They don't usually do an actual comprehensive look into Deshaun Watson. That's not what they actually did. But it was nice to see the Cleveland press really go at him. Because also, too, something that normally happens in these situations, especially if you're the caliber of player of Deshaun Watson, is you have a really big PR team and you have great agents. And usually what they do is use their power to silence opposing point of views, especially from the press. And so Cleveland, the Cleveland press gave zero fucks, and they did not bend, they did not break. They kept asking and asking and asking and asking, and they didn't give a shit. The same stupid comprehensive answer. They still kept asking, and they didn't care. And I say good for them. And I hope they continue it out throughout the season, because that's what you deserve when these kind of things happen. And it is also the risk you run by taking players like this with whether it's a sketch background or they've done something that they're accused of or whatever. That's what comes along with this. Sorry, that's what you get. And I mean, they're basically just banking on if the Cleveland Browns were to actually, be a good team and make the playoffs, make a playoff run, potentially go to a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl, nobody's going to talk about it anymore. And that's what they're banking on. Now, I don't really think that's going to happen, because they're the Cleveland Browns, and usually the choices they make are usually they don't usually work out well. If you haven't noticed, the Cleveland Browns haven't made a Super Bowl in their entire history, of at least the NFL history. They did win a couple of world championships before it was the NFL, but in NFL time, Cleveland Browns ain't done shit. And I don't really think this move is going to elevate them, but that's what they're banking on. And then just something else that I thought was kind of amusing, and I know was an absolute lie, was Watson. He maintained his innocence, of course. And my favorite line was when he said he won't settle. Well, we know that's a lie, because he's tried settling these cases on at least 2 occasions. And it's just that he couldn't get all the women to settle. I think he could only get like 18 of the 22 to settle. And he, at the time, these couple of times, they wanted all of them to settle. So that's a lie. And you can suck your own dangling dick, motherfucker, because you're a liar. But like I said, I really actually enjoyed watching Cleveland ream him anally, because in my opinion, that's what you guys deserve, because you guys have been dangling your dicks on everybody for too long, and you actually deserve what you get. Like I said, I don't wish any ill will towards Deshaun Watson, and I'm sure he's actually going to go on to have a pretty decent career. I mean, he wasn't a horrible quarterback, but I have no issues with the way Cleveland press treated the team or him, and I actually loved it, because it rarely happens. Like I said, press these days, they really want the access more than they want to tell the truth or to expose somebody. So I thought it was great to actually see them batter him down, and I expect them to continue to do that throughout the season, as they should. So good on you, Cleveland press. And then I'm going to end today's show with just a plea. Just a plea. I saw something this weekend that Arch Manning, Arch Manning. If you hear that last name, that's Peyton Manning's nephew. That's Eli Manning's nephew. That's their older brother Cooper's son, Arch Manning. He is the number one recruit out of high school this year. He just took his third tour of the University of Texas this weekend, and I just want to make my plea for Arch Manning. Could you please sign with the Texas Longhorns? Please. We haven't had a good quarterback in Texas since Colt McCoy, and that was a million years ago. And it's getting really, really heartbreaking to see how shitty the Texas Longhorn quarterback situation has turned out. So we could really, really use a great quarterback like you. Now, it sounds like you're really leaning towards us, and I'm really, really just hoping that's the truth. I hope this is not some fucking bullshit where, the Longhorn press is just getting all excited and we're getting ourselves all worked up and we're jerking off in our corners like, yes, we're going to get Arch Manning. And then he's going to just let us down, which could definitely be a possibility, because this is the guy you want on your team. But please, Arch Manning, please, could you please come play for UT? We need you. We need a good quarterback. We haven't seen one in forever. And it would be just great if you could come play for the Texas Longhorns. Hook 'em horns. We're huge fans. We haven't done shit in years, and the main reason why is because we haven't had a quarterback. So please, Arch Manning, please bring your Manningness to the University of Texas. So guys, enjoy the week of sports, and I will talk to you on Friday. Hook 'em horns, Arch Manning. Hook 'em horns.